Welcome, everybody, to our Stages mini partner workshop today, or partner mini workshop. We are joined today by Evgenia Spears, the water program coordinator at the Sierra Club Lone Star chapter. Peyton Campbell is again with us today. He is the air and water monitoring coordinator at Coastal Watch Association. And we also have Jason Hale, who is a volunteer at Sierra Club and also a member of Coastal Watch Association. Today, they will be sharing their needs related to water quality in our bays and estuaries. So with that, Evgenia, if you want to get us started.
Absolutely, sounds good. I'm Evgenia Spears, the water program coordinator with the Sierra Club Lone Star chapter. I'm participating online today. I'm physically located in Bryan College Station. So we'll start this presentation. As Audrey mentioned, we have three of us today presenting. And we'll start this presentation with the overview of the Sierra Club and then go towards the knowledge gaps. Okay, I would like to turn off my video though, because I find it a little bit distracting during my presentation. Okay. Next slide, please. So a little bit of background about the Sierra Club. Something's telling me that you've heard of the Sierra Club before, and I know this mission on the slide is written in so many words, but in short, we believe that our open spaces, water, and natural resources should be protected for the enjoyment of current and future generations. So we are the largest and the oldest environmental grassroots organization in the United States. So the Sierra Club was established in 1892 by John Muir. I don't know if you've heard of him or not, but it dates back to the formation of environmental philosophies of preservation and conservation and to the times of Theodore Roosevelt. So there's an interesting history of the Sierra Club, and I encourage you to read it if you're curious. We have chapters in all states, as I said, the largest organization in the US, and in Texas, it's the Lone Star chapter, which I represent, and Jason also represents it as an active and heavily involved volunteer in what we do. In Texas, we have over 23,000 members, and our membership base is growing, which is very, very positive. And since Texas is really large, to do our work more effectively, we have established volunteer groups in various regions of the state. For example, we have the Coastal Bend Regional Group that Jason represents, and that's where you are. I think the state is pretty much covered in terms of regional volunteer groups, except for the Panhandle. Something needs to be done there. And as you have probably already guessed, our work is about grassroots organizing, education, and advocacy for policies that equally benefit all Texans. So equitable impacts are big things of a big part of what we do. And the kind of umbrella issues that we're working on in Texas include clean energy, water protection, and air quality. And it's a lot of work, believe me. Next slide, please. Here we go. Sounds right. I coordinate activities within the water program. As I mentioned in my introduction, I'm the water program coordinator, and the main goal of our program is to ensure that water is clean and accessible for all. And my role specifically includes all things water, water quantity, quality, equitable access, surface water, groundwater, fresh water, ocean water, you name it. And we are actively engaged in the legislative process. We go to hearings like today. If I would have been normally on Monday at the Capitol because the legislative session is happening, as you know, and I think it was labeled as transformative session on water or something along those lines. A lot of water policies are being discussed. So we go to hearings, we work with Texas legislators to advance sustainable and equitable water solutions. And we also mobilize Texans to support beneficial water policies and to oppose bad water policies. A big educational piece of our water program is the newly formed Water for People and the Environment Committee. It meets regularly every month, and everyone can come and learn about issues affecting Texas water. Like we have a meeting next Monday, we will talk about PFAS in water. And it also allows us to create this network of water advocates or network of shared water related concerns, kind of building capacity that way. So this gives you a little bit of a context of our work and the water program. And now, next slide, please. Let's talk about some knowledge gaps that I think, if filled, will provide important information for more informed decision making and policy development in general, and also enrich the work of water advocates across the state. I'll talk primarily about salinity in Texas coastal waters as I discuss the knowledge gaps here. But I have to give you this quick disclaimer before we dive in. Salinity is a relatively new topic to me personally. And before I joined the Sierra Club last year, my experience was centered primarily around water quality issues in non-coastal areas. So if I'm not making any sense, let's talk about it. I will not be offended. So we know that salinity levels in Texas coastal waters are expected to rise, and there are multiple factors that have been contributing to this issue. Reduced freshwater input from rivers and streams, sea level rise, droughts, coastal development, and also potential impacts of marine desalination that's been pursued as a new water supply strategy for Texas. So with this in mind, a central, kind of like an umbrella question that I want to pose, how will rising salinity levels in Texas impact key industries, endangered species, and recreational um, activities? So let's break it down a little bit into specific areas of interest. So one of the possible avenues that we can take that would be helpful to know more about, can we project changes in salinity levels and assess their financial impact on Texas oyster industry, shrimping, or seafood in general? I guess depending on the data availability, and I'll talk about the data in a little bit. To put it differently, how will increased salinity impact the economy and the likelihood of future economic losses? It can be approached that way as well. Next, we can also look at changes in salinity levels and their impact on coastal tourism and recreation. Again, depending on the data availability, can we forecast the changes in salinity and project their impact on tourism and recreation, quantify them? And last is how will increasing salinity levels affect the well-being of the Camp's Ridley sea turtle, specifically in relation to reproduction and food availability? Like, for example, their main source of food is blue crab. And just to give you a little bit background on Camp's Ridley sea turtle and why I'm talking about it at all, part of our water program focuses on raising awareness about the Camp's Ridley sea turtle. These are federally endangered turtle species, and they're found on Texas coast. So many environmental groups in Texas are involved in the Camp's Ridley sea turtle restoration efforts, and historically it's the National Park Service that has been main government entity in charge of the rehabilitation efforts. And over the recent years, we know that the National Park Service has significantly cut the funding for the restoration program. I don't know what drives it, but the number of yearly turtle releases has decreased dramatically, and we don't really know the future of this program right now. Just quite a bit of uncertainty. However, I believe we need to understand how increasing salinity would impact the Camp's Ridley sea turtle. I think it would be beneficial for restoration efforts, rehabilitation efforts. Okay, next slide, please. And as far as implications, natural resource practitioners from environmental groups like us, Sierra Club, Coastal Watch Association, government agencies, industry leaders would benefit from additional information on the impacts of increasing salinity, and quantifying these impacts would enable more forward-looking water management policies, inform decision-making, conservation efforts, support adaptation and resilience, and also the overall increase of public awareness and effectiveness of water advocacy across the state. Next slide, please. As for the methodology and data, and I'm struggling here, to be honest, because even when I was a doctorate student at Texas A&M in College Station, my research didn't involve predictive modeling. I'm a social scientist, and my research has primarily relied on questionnaires and face-to-face interviews that I developed based on the existing studies. But here are a few ideas that where possibly we can find this information. For example, on salinity, it could be TCQ surface water quality data. They have plenty of data. Oyster populations and locations. As I was preparing for this presentation, I found the Texas Parks and Wildlife Oyster Viewer. I honestly did not know that it existed, but sounds like tons of data there. Gulf States Marine Fisheries Commission, not familiar with them, but my internet search led to there as far as the potential source for oyster data in Texas. On Kemp's Ridley sea turtles, I honestly don't know. Maybe there's NOAA, maybe NOAA has something on blue crab populations, or I don't really know much here. And then for Texas Recreation and Tourism data, Bureau of Economic Analysis, Texas Parks and Wildlife might be a good start to look for those numbers. And again, I don't know how much they have that can be used for any of these type of projects that I just discussed. But that's all I had as far as my part, and we can certainly discuss more at the end of this presentation, depending on how you want to approach the questions and answers part.
Awesome. Thanks, Evgenia. Hi, everyone. My name's Jason. I am a member of the local Coastal Bend Sierra Club group. Joined about a year ago because I was interested in increasing salinities or rising salinities in our bays, and I was concerned about the health of the ecosystems that they support. So I mostly work on the local level. I help out with Sierra Club events. I advocate for the environment at City Hall and different state agencies like TCEQ. And I serve as a source of information on local water issues like desalination. Basically, I grew up by the bay, and I'd be kind of bummed out if the health of the bay and the ecosystem it supports like degrades over my lifetime. So I think an interesting way to look at rising salinity in bays and estuaries is through freshwater inflows. Here in the coastal bend, we send about 100,000 acre feet of water from the river to our Nueces Bay. And the point of doing that is to maintain a certain salinity range that supports our estuary's unique historical and level of biological productivity. To me, it's like a commitment that we're trying to maintain a certain outcome. And I'm concerned that activities that increase salinity in the bays kind of takes away from that outcome that we agreed upon. And so, let's see, I'm just concerned that we might not be meeting those targets and what that would look like. So I think, normally we're like sending water to keep a certain salinity range, and the normal response to an increase in salinity from other activities like ship channel expansion would be just to send more freshwater inflows. But I don't think we really have that option available to us because our droughts have been getting worse since the 1950s. And moving forward, there may be altered precipitation patterns that lead to less reservoir inflows, which translates into less freshwater inflows. So the questions I had was, could we modify our environmental flows to reduce the impacts or mitigate the impacts of rising salinity in Texas bays and estuaries? So increasing inflows may not be an option, but it is a interesting way of looking at how we are quantifying what the impacts from increases in salinity would be. So like how many acre feet per 0.1 parts per thousand salinity increase would kind of keep us at the same target that we agreed to when we set the environmental flows. And then maybe instead of increasing the inflows, we could just kind of increase the benefits that we get out of the current inflows that we already have. So see, in this book that came out recently, it said that biological resources and estuaries are affected by salinity more than inflow alone. So the links between flow, salinity, and biology will determine the relationship between inflow and living sources. So to me, that kind of sounds like, well, we're sending large pulses in the spring, but maybe if we had a constant flow or change different parts of it, we could have a lower salinity level per freshwater inflow, and that could help deal with rising salinities in the future. Anyways, that's it for me. And next is Peyton. Thanks.
All right, thanks everybody. So yeah, I'm with Coastal Watch Association. We just talked last week, so I probably don't need to go into this too much. We're a local organization, and I'm going to be talking about our water side of our my air and water monitoring. So we're also sorry, this thing's giving feedback. We're also partnered up with UT Arlington as far as our water monitoring is concerned. We currently have two. Sorry, we currently have two continuous monitors. One of them in Eagleside on the Bay, and this is kind of a close-up of that. It's on this pier right here, and that's studying. It's a basically we go out and we recover the data in blocks, and we've been doing that for several years now. And that particular data source is like a retrieval data source. And so we're we're expanding to a real-time data source, which we've installed at the aquarium. That was in October, I believe, of last year. It's right on this bulkhead right here. This is the Wildlife Rescue Center. It's pretty cool. I got to see a lot of cold shock turtles as we keep doing maintenance. And so they have a lot of sea turtles here recovering before they get released in the environment. But we're right here. The Lexington's right over here to kind of give you a image of where it's at. And that one we're trying to do real time. We've had hiccups on that, just trying to get the data to be reliable and then getting the actual data to send out regularly. So we've been going back and forth with that. But we have the data, it's archived. It's just getting it to that real time update that we're struggling with. And then we have a third sonde that we're planning on deploying somewhere. We haven't decided yet. It's going to kind of be a collaboration between us and UT Arlington. And then we'll have a third real-time continuous updating water quality sonde. And unfortunately, they're quite expensive, these devices. I think they run between $15,000 and $25,000, so we can't really go too far into it as a private organization or as part of the grant. This is kind of what the data looks like from these sondes. You've got continuous data reading. This one's every 15 minutes, and then the real time is every 5 seconds it's taking data. So a lot more quantity of data for the other one, and ideally it would be real time posted on our forward-facing dashboard along with our air quality. This is kind of what it looks like. It's also just an Excel sheet or CSV sheet with the different columns with the different data. And this would be available to y'all if you desire. And so just to kind of keep going with our theme here, we wouldn't mind seeing a cumulative impact study for the salinity levels, taking multiple sources natural sources of increased salinity, man-made sources of increased salinity, and just what it's going to have on long-term effects on our marine ecosystems. Identifying any patterns in water quality changes across the regions with multiple salinity sources, and integrating, satellite imagery, remote sensing data, oceanographic models to improve the impact assessment that is going through. Yeah, that's we all kind of have a similar theme to what we're asking, but you could take parts of it, you could take all of it, whatever you're all interested in. And I think that's our conclusion. And thank you so much. And we're open for questions. Yeah. Yes.
I'll ask a question since there's time there. I'm interested in the Camps Ridley. I work with sea turtle conservation efforts, and I hadn't heard yet about the concern with the salinity. Can you tell me some more? So the salinity may be changing, and that's going to affect the blue crab, which is food for the Camps Ridley. So if you could expand a little bit on that. And also, are you more interested in the salinity in the bay versus the Gulf? Because I think salinity in the bay is a big concern. Salinity in the Gulf, maybe not.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we're, oh, sorry, go ahead, Vijay.
Oh, yeah, thank you for your question. Peyton, did you wanna start? Or
No, you go ahead.
okay. As far as the turtle, so the goal here is to be proactive, basically, right? And salinity, so I looked up the Camps Ridley sea turtle. They are not salinity sensitive species as far as I found, but I think they prefer to reproduce in bays and estuaries where salinity levels are lower. And also, their main food is blue crab, and blue crab is salinity sensitive. I think the salinity tolerance for blue crab is 20, what is it, parts per thousand? And that's where the impacts come into play. And so blue crab live in bays and estuaries. And when I talk about salinity levels concern, I talk about primarily bays and estuaries. They're highly productive ecosystems. They're balanced. We want to keep them in balance despite all growing threats that I listed in my presentation that are climate induced as well as human driven, like desalination processes. So am I answering your question? Do you have any additional clarification questions?
No, thank you. Yeah, so it's the salinity concern is really the bays and estuaries, and we have Dr.
Yeah.
Montagna on the call, who's probably the utmost expert on this advising. And then the camps, do the camps really also feed in the bays and estuaries? I was under the impression that they were more staying along the coasts, and
I thought they are. That's a good question. I never thought about it. I thought they do.
that's
for-
quite possible. I'm a physical scientist, so
Yeah.
I always need to learn more on the biology.
And I'm a social scientist, so we're talking
Okay.
about turtles.
Yeah,
Good
we need
job.
a biologist in the conversation then.
Yes.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Awesome, thank you. And we actually have a question in the room. Let me just pass the mic here.
Hello. Thank you all for a great presentation. I had mentioned I am in Dr. Coffey's movement ecology lab, and so a previous student in the lab actually did habitat suitability modeling with focus flows. So I think he actually did use blue crab as one of his focal species. So I think that there is some possibility for us to work together on that. I guess one of my major questions for you all was, were you focused more on here in Corpus Christi, or were you looking to expand along the Gulf Coast? Because obviously we do have a salinity gradient here, and that would bring a couple more factors into the modeling process.
Absolutely. That's a great question. I was primarily thinking Corpus Christi, the Corpus Christi area, but if it makes more sense to expand again, like suffering from the lack of my technical knowledge on this particular subject, kind of reliant on you. What would you suggest? But my thought was primarily the Corpus Christi area.
Hello, it's me again. Thank you. That's great. I think so. Just first impression of this, I think that habitat suitability modeling project would be totally doable. There is a lot of data through Texas Park and Wildlife. Well, they have actually 3 different methods of collecting samples. So they have bag sing data, they have trawl data, and they have gillnet survey data. So you get different life stages amongst all of those, but we also get lots of different species like crustaceans, fish larvae, all of those things. So I think that there would be a lot of possibility there. They also collect abiotic samples when they do those samplings. So my lab has access to all of that data. So I think we could definitely figure something out for this type of project because I mean, I think it's pretty interesting. So I'd be happy to chat more with you guys.
Yeah, thank you. That sounds awesome. I didn't even know about that data sources that you just listed.
Yeah,
Great.
that's awesome. Yeah, we've got one more question here.
Thank you guys for coming in. Just to preface this, I'm an atmospheric scientist by trade. But I have noticed the trend is salinity increases, and that's what you guys are really wanting to predict here. But are there other water quality predictors that you guys want to look at aside from just salinity increases, or is it just specifically for salinity increases?
So when I was thinking just salinity for this project. I'm willing to bounce ideas and talk about that, but my primary concern is that currently, if as I said, we work with the legislature, right? So currently, if you look at the Texas Water Code and water quality standards for salinity, they're close to non-existent. They're very qualitative in Texas. They just say basically salinity must be maintained to protect the existing aquatic uses. Clearly not enough given the factors that are contributing to increased salinity. And so, in other words, Texas is not really monitoring cumulative impacts of salinity right now. Salinity is part of, let's say, permitting for desalination plants, but no one knows like cumulatively what do we do to our basin estuary, what's happening in our basin estuaries as far as salinity levels. So that's where I'm coming from, because currently at the legislature there is one bill that directs, if passed, will direct TCEQ to establish numeric criteria for salinity. But we don't know how far that bill will advance, and it hasn't even been scheduled for a hearing yet. But the issue is pressing, and that's why I guess it justifies all our, like, where we were coming from with salinity concerns, Jason and Peyton included.
Hold on one second. Now I'll come over. Yeah, I don't think it picks up anything for the remote viewers. Here you go.
Thank you. My question is about the 2 water monitoring stations that you have and show on the map. The first question is, how do you choose those locations? And secondly, is the sonde that you deployed, is it only measuring the surface or is it going up and down the water column?
So the pond itself is in a 6-foot housing, and so it's dropped down to the bottom of the 6-foot housing. So it's about 6 feet deep in the water column. And it doesn't really float. I mean, it gets some motion with wave action, but it just kind of is a stationary source within that housing. Now there is, as far as the locations, that's Patrick Nye's pier, and he was a volunteer. And so that's where they started off experimenting. And they also had like a wake study there with a camera. There were multiple projects going on there. And so they put it there. And then we partnered up with the aquarium because they volunteered, and it was a good, accessible location, kind of near the main ship channel. And so we picked that location. And for the third one, we haven't really picked any location yet. So, but we'd be open for input on recommendations for that third location because they haven't finalized it yet. Yeah, a model predicting the best place would be a great idea. So maybe that'll be a result of this study. Any other questions in the room or online?
I'll make a comment. It's, as you guys are, as the students are selecting their projects, you'd like, I think, to tackle an important issue, and that's great. And you also need to sort of plan the project such that it can be done in a year, and that you have the right skills in the team. And I'll say that on the sea turtle side, if you want to do a sea turtle project, I can certainly help with the connections all along the coast. But not. I think if you move on the policy recommendations and sounding the alarm that we're basically shutting down a very successful program that was sea level rise and climate change ready, I'd be happy to help. But as a data intensive project, that's going to be a little more challenging. I'd be ready to brainstorm, but it's I don't think it's going to be obvious. And then on the salinity and fresh water, a local project sounds good, but in general, I highly recommend to ask questions to Dr. Montagna and see what he advises, what are the needs, how can you use the local data, and also if he sees if Paul, if you see a good angle for a group of students to tackle.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your input. Yeah, we just approach this presentation as knowledge gaps, what information would be helpful. But as far as methodology, data sources, if it needs to be discussed with us, we're open for that, obviously. Available, here's emails. Feel free to reach out at any time. We can brainstorm ideas as well, build on the ones we offered.
Okay, we don't have any more questions in the room. Anything else online? And if not, we'll get this presentation concluded. Okay, well, thank you all very much for attending. We appreciate it. And hopefully we'll be hearing from some of you soon.
Yeah, thank you so much. Let's stay in touch if you're interested, and feel free to reach out.
Thank you.
I just quickly would like to add as a resource while exploring this topic, the recent freshwater inflows to Texas bays and estuaries book has a chapter on circulation and salinity. So
And notice that Dr. Douglas is a co-author there.
Mm-hmm.
yes, I'm a co-editor on it. So I believe it's chapter 4. It may also be interesting to look at the historical perspectives on the context of freshwater inflows for the history and development of our management practices for this question. But yeah, the hydrology, circulation, and salinity. And then also all of the data that was used in this chapter can be found on Grid C too. So there is some data that's already been gathered and is publicly available. And I believe it's 30 years worth of data that was used. Okay, so last chance. Any more questions online or in the room? Okay. Thank you, Evgenia, Jason, and Peyton for joining us today. We look forward to looking into these questions more and continuing the conversation.
Thank you so much.
So thank you all.